Hi guys, we're going to start building the chassis now. Wife's on our way home with dinner, so when she gets here I'll pause the video, go eat, then I'll come back out, get started again. Go ahead and get the bag open. Sorry if I'm clearing my throat a lot, I inhaled some of my drink. Alright, now I've got the chassis orientated so it looks the same as it does on the screen for me. It's going to be backwards for you guys, but didn't have a way to mount the camera any better. To flip it around, I got y'all mounted on a shelf right above my work table inside my trailer, so just kind of hang in there with it. Alright, so we've got our LE chassis, 2025. We have the Lighten chassis now, as you can see the cutouts in it. So we're going to start mounting everything up. So this is going to be our center diff mount with our motor slide. And then we've got our piece that goes on top here. And then we've got our rear. So we got M4x8 screws. How many I'm going to say we need? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. There's 4, 5, 6. And those will be used to mount that thing up. So we're going to have our 2.5 millimeter. I'm going to go ahead and get my thread lock put on all these. Excuse my dog, my neighbor has his dog outside. So we've got our 2 holes here, which are going to line up with our 2 holes here, and that'll get us started. First 2 started, and then everything else should line right up. And as you can see by the mess on my table, I don't ever recommend doing this on a straight tabletop. You could do it on a pit pad, but you want to lay something down that you could just throw away or wipe up later. There's all sorts of fluids, thread locker and diff fluid and shock fluid that you'll end up getting on your work area. So I know my table's dirty, but that also helps if you're doing it in a pit trailer or something like that. Lay some good thick paper towels down or rags, and then at the end of the job you just ball it up, throw it away. Alright, so we got our motor mount, our front center diff mount put in. Next we're going to be putting our lower rear in there. There's a raised flange that the bearing goes up against. That's going to go towards the outside. That way when you put your diff in here, the bearings have something to stop from sliding back and forth. So that's going to go on these two holes here. Get all this started. Get the threads started by hand, and then I'll come back in with the wrench and tighten it up. Like so. I use the wrench, I come in and I just snug them first, that way the holes line up good, and then I'll come in and I'll crank them down. I think I already cranked the front ones down, but I'm going to check them again while I got it here. Alright, so we got the lower part of our mount put together. Alright, now we're going to go down here. Alright, we're going to want our stippled center diff. And grab that out of my box here. So your gear's going to go over the cutout in the chassis here. And it should slide right in like so. Nice and easy. Easy, easy. I like easy. Alright, then next we've got our top piece here. Fits over the bearing. Screw holes will line up. Then we got our rear one. It's actually got some nubs sticking up that'll go into the notches in the bottom of this to help you center it. It's not going to slide all the way down on there because it does pinch the bearing a little bit, so the bearing doesn't spin around inside the hub, inside the bracket. So that's the reason why it's there. Alright, next we're going to get our carbon fiber top plate out. And this has been drilled out on top. That'll face the top. The wide part of it goes over where the gear is at, just like so. Now we've got two long screws. We've got, let's see here, we want a really short one on that side. Should be 3 long screws and then a medium screw. Oh, here it is. It's hiding from me. Alright, so we got 3 long screws and then a shorter screw. And we're going to thread lock all these bad boys because we're going to be threading into aluminum. Alright, you don't have to go crazy with the thread locker. Do not need to go crazy with it. Alright, so we're going to get them through the carbon fiber, go into the hole. Push it down until it stops. And the long screw is going to go in the part that's long on the front. And then the little medium-sized screw is going to go into the motor side. 2 mil. I'm just going to kind of run these down. I'm not going to tighten them up yet. As always, you don't want to tighten it up until you've got everything just a little snug. I'll make sure everything's centered. These screws will center everything up for you. Alright, now I'm going to tighten them down. as you tighten it down, you can feel the aluminum forming around the bearings. It'll feel almost spongy as you tighten it down, and then you'll feel it when the pieces of aluminum come together. It'll stop. That's nice and tight. This is spinning free. Center diff feels good inside, feels good outside, spins all nice and super smooth. Alright, so that knocked out that step. Now we're going to go down and we're going to put our battery mount together. So that stuff's going to be in this bag here where the top plate was at. Make sure all the goodies are out of there. Yep. Alright, so bunch of pieces to this. So we're going to have a couple of long screws, a couple of short screws in there, and then we need to figure out where our battery is going to be mounted. If you run in different size batteries, yours may go in different holes, but mine are going to go in the outer two holes, sort of like how it's pictured there. That's how my car is set up. So we're going to come in with our long screw. Well, let's start with the short ones. We'll put the rods on there first. So those are going in the metal, so we're going to need to thread lock them. The thread locker on that one, and knock that over and put the thread locker on that one. So we're going to take these. They're probably the same thing as the steering posts. That's what they look like anyhow. I've been using them on my other car. They work so well. Alright. I'm a little OCD, so I want this kind of square looking inside there. So that's going to go in the hole from the back, one hole up from the back, and then screws onto there like so. And we're going to do the same thing for the front one. Come into the second hole. Get it squared up. Then get it where it squares up, not square. Alright. Pretty close. A little more. Alright. That's straight. So we got our two posts on there with the shorter screws, and we're going to come in with our longer screws, and they're going to have nuts on them, so I don't need to go all crazy with it. So they're going to go in the very front hole. We're going to have a metal piece in here like so. Then we're going to come in with our carbon fiber piece. It's going to hug, and it's going to go around like so. Then a nut goes on top. Just like so. Get the driver for that. And that's going to be a 7mm. Yep. That's the same size also that 10th scale wheel nuts use. So if you run any 10th scale, you'll have one of these wrenches readily available. Alright, it should go in there. It should look like that when it's done. And we're going to do the same thing for the rear one. There again, no thread lock needed because we are going into a nylock nut. I'm just going to hug it like So, put a nut on top. And this one's got a little bit of adjustment to it on the back one. Actually, I didn't notice that on the instructions, but yeah, the front one's not adjustable. The rear one can be slid forward and backward, depending on how bad you want to squeeze your battery. I'm going to leave mine back to give my battery just a little extra wiggle room inside there. Just want to put the clamp down on top. It'll hold my battery good. Because I run a, I'll put a cushion under the top plate, and the battery will also sit on foam because I don't like my battery just slamming around inside the car. I like it to have a little bit of cushioning to it. Alright, so that's your outer hooks for it. Alright, so we'll go to the next step, which is going to be the inner one. So that's going to be a carbon fiber rod with some red metal bushings and bolts with nylocks. There's going to be 2 more long ones. I'll go through this hole here. Got a bushing. And that's going to start there. Get the nut straight on there, and then it'll start. There it goes. Alright. Same thing with the other one. Now, before you get too crazy, before you jam that screw all the way through there, move this around, and push the screw up through the hole. Hold it with your finger on the bottom, and start the nut. And again, this is going to be adjustable. I'm going to move mine to the center of the car a little bit because I do like just a little bit of room around my battery, and I'll take up any additional space with some foam tape. Because there again, I don't like my battery slamming around the car. I like it to have some cushioning, because I've seen bad things happen with batteries that have been beat up. I'm going to put my finger on there. I'm going to kind of hold that in place while I tighten it up so it stays to the inside. Alright, so that's in there. So now we pretty much got 90% of our battery tray put in. A later step we'll end up putting the threaded rods in here and the top plate and the nut, but they aren't going to have us do that quite yet. Alright. Yeah, it goes in and it tells you if you're running a shorty battery, put it here. If you're running a full-size battery, put it here. You got your width adjustment here. Yeah, you can run double shorties inside here, and then stack them. All right, next we're going to put our ESC mount inside of here. And these can be tricky, can be. So if you hear me cussing, that's what the deal was. All right, so this goes here, I believe. Flip it over. There we go. Holes line up. Alright, so that ESC plate's going to go there. Now, neat thing about these cars is the plate has cushion, is going to have cushion underneath it. So I'll show you how we're going to do this. We got these 4 little screws here. We're going to throw some thread locker on them right quick. A little dab will do you. Alright. So how these will work, there's these little rubber O-rings here. 1, 2, 3. The other one's still in the bag. Yep, still in the bag. I see it. Rubber O-rings and plastic bags. Never get along. Alright, so got my 4 O-rings here. So how I'm going to do this is I'm going to take my first screw, I'm going to put it through a hole. And I'm going to put my nut driver on it. Make sure it's all the way in there. I'm going to take the rubber O-ring, I'm going to put it over that. And then I'm going to take my plate and make sure my holes are lining up. Yep. And then these nuts, the nut side of it's going to be facing the top of the plate. It's going to go through the plate. And the screw's going to go into it, like so. And they will get tightened all the way up so that metal sleeve will go inside of that O-ring and tighten up against the chassis. Do the same thing for the next one. Put that in there. Put the O-ring in it. Slide the plate up over it. Gonna get that one started. Hold it with a wrench and tighten her up. And here comes the fun part, trying to line up them back ones. So if I had started with the inside, it would have probably been a little bit easier. Only done a couple of these cars, so I'm a glutton for punishment, I guess. I think I would have remembered that. But we'll get her done. Alright, so should be able to get that O-ring underneath that plate. I dropped that one. Let me grab another one. Tell you what, before I get too deep into it, let me put my driver underneath there, or underneath, yeah. Pry up on it just a little bit, get the O-ring under there and lined up. Same thing with the other one. Line up on the hole. The other one slid underneath there somewhere. Where'd it go? The one in the lightning notch, the chassis. See if I can get it out of there. There it goes. Alright, now let me lay the chassis flat and do this again. I'll lift up on the plate. Center it on the hole. Lift up on the plate. Center it on the hole. Alright. Take our screw, put it through. Put our nut in there. And make sure when you're putting those things on that you make sure that you don't feel like you're cross threading, because that is threading into aluminum. Those little nuts are aluminum. If you cross thread it, you'll have a bad day. Because more than likely it's not going to go all the way in. Then when you try to take it out, it's probably just going to spin around on there and not want to come out. Should be nice and easy. Alright, those are snug. Alright, so once you get that put together, can't really see it, but those O-rings are pressed inside here, so your ESC mount has a little bit of softness to it. And then it also raises the ESC mount up off the chassis a little bit. So if you're one of those people that likes to put a strap around their ESC, which I glue mine down with E6000 or with shoe glue. And I will put a small zip tie, couple zip ties around it just to hold it down nice and tight until the glue fully hardens. And then I'll cut the zip ties off and pull it out. And then it'll be glued to that mount there and everything will be nice. Alright, so next step we're going to go down. Alright, now we're going to put our skirts on. Last car I built I put together with yellow skirts. I had bought yellow skirts to possibly put on this car, but I'm not going to use them. I'm going with a dark theme on this car, so we're going to go with the black skirts and the black bumper, and then it'll have a red spoiler on the front, and we'll start off with a black spoiler on the back and we'll see where it goes from there. Got another set of bushings inside there, and then the skid plates. Dogs are out there trying to play. Alright, so got my bag of screws, got my skirts. So skirts gonna cup around that way, I think. Yep. Alright, so when you're putting it together, pay attention that not all your holes are nice and flat. Some of them have been countersunk. They're going to get a different screw inside there, and that's normally where your electronics are at, so you don't have a button head sticking up. The screw is recessed inside there. So we got a whole bunch of these little short screws here. I believe they're 2mm. Yep. And they're going into aluminum, so I need to put some thread locker on them. I don't know if these screws would actually back out, but I wouldn't chance it. I'd thread lock them if I were you, because that keeps dirt off your chassis, or it helps keep dirt off your chassis, and it also protects the side of your car if you tangle with somebody on the track. So let me loosen up that first screw. That screw hole's not lining up perfect. Alright, there it goes. And that's why I always say don't tighten your screws until you get all your screws started. I think I'd listen to my own thing there. Just getting them started, a little over halfway. I'm not tightening them up yet. I like that when I open that bag up, the dog bones are in there, so that must mean I'm about to mount the front and the rear bulkheads in. I'm going in and I'm tightening all the screws up in here. I'm not over tightening them to where they're like screwing into the plastic, screwing the head into the plastic. I'm just snugging them down really good. Tighten them up too much, it'll swell the plastic out. And in my opinion, it don't look all that good when you do it that way. Alright, got a button head on the front started. And then we got our countersunk screws. We got 2 of those in a row. I heard somebody trying to say at the track yesterday that somebody had heard that these cars don't have good fit and finish. And I'm going to tell you now, every single thing is lined up so far. I've had no problems with alignment. I've had no problems with fit. And this would be car number, Mayako number 3 I built. My first one was a prototype. All the fit and finish of the parts that were included with the prototype were pretty darn good. I didn't have to do much readjustment to anything. I didn't have to really do anything crazy to that thing to get it put together other than make some other parts fit on it that weren't made specifically for it. So I had to modify some other manufacturers' parts and some custom made things for the car to work. But I bought the first release model, which was a 24, the first production model, and everything went together like an absolute dream, just like this one has. The only issues I've had with this is the couple of custom parts aren't in the instruction manual, or the optional parts aren't in the instruction manual to show you how to do them, so I've had to do a little bit of extra research. But the LE is not a normal production model, so I get it, you know, same thing as when I had the prototype, putting the prototype together. It's not the everyday car, so instructions aren't going to show everything. Alright, now we're going to go down to the next one. Oh, looky here. We're about to put the bell crank on. Alright, so this shows you how to put a servo saver together. I'm going to run mine without the servo saver. In my opinion, the servo savers are really hard to get them right. Servo saver piece. Bell crank without the servo saver. Another servo saver piece. Spring. Shaft, bearings, screws, all the goodies. Oh, that's for the servo saver, we won't need that. Alright, so we got our sets of screws here. We got 4 bearings and some little screws and whatnot. And we've got our steering posts, We'll saver nut. Swivel pins and our servo ball. Alright, so to start with, yes, those are steering posts that are on the battery. Alright, so we're going to take two of our short 2.5 millimeter screws here. Actually, they're not telling you to screw that down yet, are they? No, we are assembling the Ackerman arm first. So, I'll show the Ackerman arm. The V, the point of the V is going to be pointing to the back. The ends are going to be pointing towards the front. So, first things first, we've got our short part of our arm here. We're going to take the sleeve nut here. It's going to slide through the bottom up to the top. And same thing on this one. Bottom up to the top. Again, this don't have the servo saver. This is a servo saverless. And then we're going to have our screws. Which screws are we going to use on these bad boys? So we're going to go 12 mil. It's going to be these two 12 millimeters here. We've got our 2 millimeter. The thread locker on there. We don't want to go crazy on those specifically because this is going to be on a moving part. So we just want to make sure we got it inside the threads. So we're going to come through this side. And then with the post hole towards the back. Run this screw in here. There we go. Tighten her up. And then that should be able to move freely. It's not a bearing in there, so it's not going to be super free, but it's not going to be locked up. Same thing on this side. The thread locker to get into the threads, nothing crazy. Go through here. And same thing. Servo post hole goes behind it. Just like so. Alright, and then we're going to take our screw here. Oh, the washer on backwards. It's got a countersunk washer with a longer screw. It's going to come up from underneath and it's going to go through this plastic arm here, sticking off the side. And we're going to do a little something when it comes out of here and we get it tightened up in the plastic. So we're going to snug this up pretty good in the plastic. And then we've got our steering ball here. We're going to put some thread locker on the threads on this. Again, nothing too crazy. And then we're going to thread that down over the top. And I'll take my little wrench. I'm going to tighten that up. Just like that. So when you're done, your rack should look like so. Once you do that, you'll take these bearings and they fit down into these holes, kind of snug. Try to press them all the way in. It's a little tighter than the other ones that went in. Alright, now you've got that. Now we'll go down. Now we're going to put the posts in. There again, we got our short screw, dab a thread locker, and the ones with the square cutouts around them, we're going to put a screw up through there. Start our post. Remember, start the step by hand. Now once you get it down close to the body, you're going to press it down into that square hole and tighten the screw up on the bottom. The body will actually hold that post in place where you tighten it up. And these are steel posts, so crank them. I think I hear my wife coming down the road now, so once we get this bow crank put together, I'll go eat dinner and then we'll go into the next video. Alright, into the square, push it in. Maybe that wasn't her. Alright, so now we've got our steering post on there. It's wanting us to set this down on there, so we're going to fit it on the bearings, push it all the way down, line it up, and it'll be flush at the top. And then you got your steering. Alright, now we're going to go down to the next step. Ooh, we're going to start doing some stuff. Alright, so now we're going to start mounting the front and the rear end to the car. Some more of that other stuff. So we'll start with the front of the car. This is here. Won't pull the back of the car out yet. So we've got all of our screws to mount that stuff already on the tabletop. And let me find the bumper here. I already got the bumper out there. So I need the dog bone. I need the front skid plate, which is going to be the square one. You got one that's more square, one that's more rounded. The rounded one will go towards the back. The square one goes towards the front. If I'm not mistaken. Yep. Alright, sounds like my wife is here. Alright, so we're going to put the dog bone in. We're going to slide it back into place. Work it into your holes are lined up here. And actually I need to put a spacer underneath that. So I'm going to dig that out. So I'm going to pause the video, wipe this pulled up. I'm going to go eat dinner. I'm going to finish assembling this.